I promised you that every single show we will go inside Project 2025, and today our deep dive inside Project 2025 is going to focus on the blueprint's proposals on gun policy. Now, if the gun rights lobby has its way, Wednesday's tragic shooting in Georgia will be reduced to yet another statistic dressed up in empty thoughts and prayers. And if Donald Trump returns to office, the GOP's unholy alliance with the corporate gun lobby could be cemented into federal law. Both Project 2025 and Donald Trump's official policy platform, Agenda 47, aim to shield the gun industry with layers of legal protection. For context, while Trump has been trying to distance himself from the Heritage Foundation's far-right manifesto for some months now, the proposals in Agenda 47 mirror Project 2025's dangerous objectives, and in many cases, they go even further. In fact, Trump campaign officials even acknowledged in 2023, before the public caught wind of Project 2025, that Project 2025 aligns well with Trump's Agenda 47, which is featured on his campaign website, and it includes multiple links to the Heritage Foundation's work. That's the very same Heritage Foundation whose Project 2025 Trump continues to try to distance himself from. Agenda 47 began rolling out in December of 2022, followed 4 months later by the Heritage Foundation's release of Project 2025 in April of 2023. So today, we're going to take a look at both policy playbooks to understand what another Trump term is actually going to look like with respect to America's gun laws. Taken together, the proposals would grant the gun lobby essentially everything on its wish list, including making it easier to sell dangerous firearms, weakening concealed carry laws, and overturning state bans on assault weapons. That's in spite of the fact that most Americans, including Republicans, support strong gun control laws. Specifically, a survey from the Pew Research Center finds that a majority of Americans support banning assault weapons, a term used to describe certain semi-automatic weapons, including AR-15-style rifles, like the kind used in this week's shooting in Georgia. Fewer than one-third support allowing expansive gun laws like concealed carry without a permit. Either way, this has never truly been about protecting Second Amendment rights for ordinary gun owners, despite Republican talking points. It's always been about the GOP's dangerous alliance with the corporate gun lobby. And that's reflected in the budget proposal advanced by the far-right caucus known as the Republican Study Committee, which adopts proposals from both Agenda 47 and Project 2025, including the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, which is the NRA's top legislative priority, which would overturn state laws about carrying concealed firearms and allow guns to be more accessible, more easily transportable across state lines. In the Agenda 47 pitch, Trump explicitly states, quote, "I will sign concealed carry reciprocity. Your Second Amendment does not end at the state line." Now, this law forces each state to recognize the concealed carry standards of every other state, even those states that have dramatically weaker standards or those that don't require any permit at all. Gun control advocates describe this as a race to the bottom for public safety. According to the group Everytown for Gun Safety, that would be no different than, quote, forcing states to let visitors drive on their highways without a driver's license and without having passed an eye, written, or road test. Out-of-state visitors could be armed without being screened by a background check, and law enforcement would have no permit to evaluate. That's probably why leading law enforcement groups have opposed the legislation. Once again, looser gun laws are not a priority for Republican voters or even police departments. It serves mainly the interests of the corporate gun lobby. The irony here is that this proposed law blatantly disregards state sovereignty, meaning the party that publicly champions limited federal government and states' rights is violating its own core principles through Project 2025. From reproductive rights to gun control, today's GOP has repeatedly shown its willingness to sacrifice state rights if it allows them to impose extremist agendas on all Americans. In fact, right now, the gun industry is working in tandem with Republican lawmakers to overturn all state bans on AR-15-style weapons. While the GOP tries to put this legislation through Congress, gun rights groups are suing to overturn Maryland's bans on assault-style weapons, including the AR-15 type, which is the weapon of choice in America's mass shootings. The conservative Supreme Court is slated to hear the case this fall after the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals recently upheld Maryland's ban, describing the assault-style weapon as too destructive for self-defense and best suited for wreaking death and destruction. Federal Judge Harvey Wilkinson, a Reagan appointee who authored the majority opinion, quoted a trauma surgeon who likened being shot in the liver by an AR-15 to a watermelon exploding on concrete. But instead of placing blame where it belongs, on the GOP's financial benefactor, the corporate gun lobby, Agenda 47 cynically diverts attention by targeting a popular GOP scapegoat, the LGBTQ plus community. In a section addressing school violence, Trump proposes directing the Food and Drug Administration to assemble a, quote, independent outside panel to investigate whether transgender hormone treatments and ideology increase the risk of extreme depression, aggression, and violence, end quote. Okay. The Gun Violence Archive, which began collecting data on gun violence in 2013, found that the percentage of suspects in mass shootings who are trans is 0.11%. Another alarming proposal in Project 2025, which builds on Agenda 47, essentially cripples existing gun control regulations. On page 709, Project 2025 calls for transferring the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the agency responsible for regulating firearms, from the Justice Department to the Treasury Department. This shift would dramatically weaken our nation's ability to enforce gun laws by making it nearly impossible to track the sale of dangerous firearms, leading to increased gun trafficking and making it more challenging to investigate gun-related crimes. And lastly, Trump's Agenda 47 calls for arming teachers with guns and, quote, to support federal funding to hire trained gun owners as armed guards in our nation's schools, end quote. This, despite a Johns Hopkins survey showing that less than a quarter, only 23% of Americans support allowing civilians to carry guns on school grounds. The proposal reflects the GOP's longstanding policy of shifting responsibility for public safety from the gun industry to school children and school administrators. In the absence of political will, school children are left scrambling for bulletproof backpacks and classroom panic buttons, among other Band-Aid solutions. And with classrooms increasingly resembling maximum security prisons, consider this. Project 2025 refers to abortion access as, quote, the grotesque culture of violence against the child in the womb, end quote. I'll repeat that. The grotesque culture of violence against the child in the womb. It seems, though, once children are out of the womb, the GOP is practically content with having them fend for themselves in the face of unchecked gun violence. The extreme proposals outlined in Project 2025 and Agenda 47 will take a sledgehammer to the already limited gun control measures we have, leaving us scrambling for ever more inadequate defenses against the uniquely American public health crisis of gun violence. Before the break, I told you about the plans that Project 2025 and its counterpart, Agenda 47, have for gutting gun control laws in this country. Joining me to discuss is Chris Brown. She's the president of the nonprofit Brady United Against Gun Violence. Chris advocated for the gun control bill that would eventually become the Brady bill, which requires back on federally licensed gun sales. The Brady bill was passed and signed into law in 1993. It took effect in 1994. Chris, thanks for being with us. The proposals in both Project 2025 and Agenda 47 are perfectly aligned with NRA goals, including efforts to overturn state bans on assault-style weapons. Talk to me about the role that the protection racket that is the NRA and the gun rights groups and the lobby are playing in shaping these blueprints.
Thanks for having me. And indeed, you're exactly right. Look, it's not just in these documents, both Project 2025 and Agenda 47. As you noted in the segment before, it is a top priority of the National Rifle Association and extremist gun rights groups to pass what they label concealed carry reciprocity. Basically, what that would do is undo all of the permitting systems that exist in states across this country. That's what it would do. And the agenda there is very clear. It's to sell as many guns to as many people as possible and remove every public safety measure in place to allow that to happen. It's profit seeking. And the NRA and these other gun rights extremist groups could care less that gun violence is the #1 killer of our kids. And same with Donald Trump. Let's believe him when he says about school shootings, we should just get over it. No one's getting over this. Yeah. No parent. All of us feel at risk, and the solutions before us are really simple.
J.D. Vance said this week that it's a fact of life. The proposal, Project 2025, is aiming to shift the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, what we knew as the ATF, from the Justice Department to the Treasury Department. Do you have any sense of how this would enforce or have an impact on the enforcement of gun laws that are already in place or future gun laws?
It would really gut the effective enforcement of the gun laws at the federal level. And let me just explain why that is so drastic and potentially very deadly. George W. Bush is the one who switched enforcement power of the ATF from Department of Treasury to DOJ. The reason he did that is the ATF is the top cop, really, of gun dealers in this country. We have more gun dealers than we have McDonald's and Starbucks combined. About 5% of them are responsible for 90% of the guns recovered in crime. ATF under DOJ actually can help target which dealers are need to be inspected, ensure that when there are violations of the law, there's coordination between ATF and DOJ to prosecute dealers who are violating the law. So if you want to defang all of that and effectively allow dealers to go unregulated, what would you do? You'd take it out of DOJ and put it into Treasury. And that's why he's doing that.
This Project 2025 is full of proposals like that lay people may just not understand what the implications are, and they just sort of go kind of unnoticed. And that's why we have people like you on to make us understand what exactly is going on here. Chris, great to talk to you again. Thank you for being with us. Chris Brown is the president of Brady United Against Gun Violence.